You are making the world a better place by listening to the Joy of Living podcast. This is your guide to achieving a more purposeful, powerful, and positive life. Join Barry Shore in unlocking the best version of you and becoming happier, healthier, and wealthier. And now, here's your ambassador of joy, Barry Shore.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking, so I was looking for and finding the good. We have good in abundance. Our cup runneth over with good, because you're about to meet one of the most remarkable, transformative beings that exist on the planet today, and his whole life is geared to being of benefit to the world. And that's, of course, why you have consciously and conscientiously tuned into the Joy of Living with your humble host, Barry Shore, because you know, in this show, we work with the three fundamentals of life. And when you follow these three fundamentals of life, you will be happier, healthier, and wealthier. Who doesn't want that, right? Happier, healthier, wealthier. I just want to make sure that you understand that this show is all about you. You've tuned in for one reason and one reason only. It's the best reason in the whole world, because you care the most in the entire world about you, Y-O-U, which is great, by the way, because when you become the best you make the world a better place. You build more bridges of harmony. You create more joy, happiness, peace, and love in the world. I want to make you aware that at this very moment, you are joined by approximately 348,613 people around the world, all of whom have consciously and consciously tuned in to the Joy of Living podcast, because they know it is all about you, every single one of you, and the ability to be happier, healthier, and wealthier. And I'm just deeply humbled and honored that you not only tell people about it, you share, you urge them to join in, because we have everywhere from 350,000 people every week. And by the time Leonard comes on, we'll probably have 360 plus thousand people listening, all intent upon getting better every day. The three fundamentals of life. Now, these three fundamentals are, number one, life. Your life has purpose. And when you lead a purpose-driven life, number two happens. Now, in this case, a good number two, you go MAD. Now, MAD is a wonderful acronym that stands for Make a Difference. You lead a purpose-driven life, you make a difference in the world. And the third fundamental is to uncover the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms. Simple example, right now, this podcast is being carried over the internet. And if you ask anybody, what does www stand for? Invariably, it has to do with the internet. And factually speaking, they're correct. But in our world, the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, www stands for what a wonderful world. And what is a word, right? WHATA. But whenever you hear the opening bars of that amazing song by Louis Armstrong, Satchmo, which went viral and touched not just tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and billions of people around the planet, what do you do right away when you hit the opening bars? You smile. You can't help it. Now, smile is one of the most important words you're going to internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life, because smile stands for seeing miracles in life every day. Seeing miracles in life every day. I'm deeply happy and honored and humbled to tell you that I'm back now doing in-person webinars, not just webinars, in-person situations, and in talking to people without a mask and hugging and such like that. We just recently did one with 1,176 people. And I'm talking about the story of Barry Shore, mentioning about smiles, seeing miracles in life every day. And some people raise their hand and say, hey, Barry Shore, I've been up for hours, I haven't seen any miracles. And I ask them, are you here? Can you hear? Can you stand still? I can't do that. Can you walk? I can barely do that. Do you have water to drink? Do you have food to eat? Do you have a place to sleep? Do you have family? Do you have friends? Every single one of those is a miracle. And what's the proof? Simplest proof. 1 million people didn't get out of bed this morning. You know why? They died. By definition, if you're listening or watching, you're here. You have an obligation to live life to the full, exuberantly. Let me tell you a quick story. Imagine the following. If you can, Standing up in the morning, hale and hearty, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, and that evening being in the hospital, totally, completely paralyzed. I was a quadriplegic overnight, not from an automobile accident, not a spinal injury, a rare disease which I never heard of the day before, took over my body and rendered me incapable of moving from my neck down, completely paralyzed. I could only communicate by blinking my eyes. I was 144 days in the hospital. I was 2 years in a hospital bed in my own home. I couldn't turn over by myself. 4 years in a wheelchair. I had braces on both my legs, my hips to my ankles, and that was progress. Thank God today I'm able to be vertical and ambulatory with the help of a 7-foot walking wand. But I'm a triped, not a biped. I still can't walk up a stair by myself. I can't walk up a curb by myself. I have help 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. But you hear my voice. Positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, and all because of one word. Smile. Seeing seeing miracles in life every day. Now I got to tell you very quickly, my 8-year-old niece comes over to me a few weeks ago and she says, Uncle Barry, can we spell smile S-M-I-E-L? I thought about it. Smile sounds the same. Why not? I asked her, how come? She says, because then it would stand for seeing miracles in everyday life. Out of the mouth of babes, an 8-year-old. What was she doing? She was creating the kind of world she wants to live in. Now, CREATE is a wonderful acronym that stands for causing rethinking, enabling all to excel. Thinking is the key. How you have a perspective on the world. We call it a shift in perspective. Now, you got to be careful with your shift. 97.2% of all the tens of thousands of people that I've been working with over the decades somehow drop the F and shift, and the other stuff happens. So the key is to understand the 6 most important words you could ever internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life. And these are choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. You're going to hear a lot about that from our amazing guest, wonderful Leonard. I'm going to tell you right now, anything and everything you want to know about Leonard, you really want to know, is at my website. Just go to www.barryshore.com, BARRYSHORE, barryshore.com. Everything about Leonard will be there. Because you're going to want to lean in and just listen today. Don't take notes, just lean in and listen. Let the transformative ideas flow around you, through you, and in you. Now, before we begin, I just want to warn Leonard in advance, because he's a religious man, that I do use a lot of 4-letter words. And I even use the 4-letter FU word. I use it for shock value, and it's fun also. Now, the 4-letter words that we use, because we live in the world of positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, are love, life, hope, free, gift, grow, play, pray, swim. 4-letter words, right? And the 4-letter FU word is fun. F-U, capital N, capital N. Now, I know some people raising their hands right away and say, hey, Barry Shore. Fun is only spelled with 3 letters, not in our world. And in the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, fun is spelled F-U, capital N. So after the show, you see your family and friends. I want you to point your finger and say, F-U, everybody. But remember to add right away, capital N, capital N. I said, where'd you get that? Well, I listened to Barry Shore and the joy of living. He wants to teach the world to F-U. Capital N, capital N will cause the ability to open up and share the ideas. So I just wanted to share this with you. I'd like you to use the 2 most important words in the English language for now and the rest of your life, because it will benefit your family, your friends, all living beings, and most importantly, you. And these 2 words are thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks stands for to harmonize and network kindness. To harmonize and network kindness. Dalai Lama has been quoted saying, I read in his writings, be kind whenever possible. And he says, it's always possible. Imagine going to a coffee shop, order your fancy latte, and you sit down, someone brings you, say, thank you. You go to the coffee shop, you order a fancy latte, a couple of minutes go by, you go up to the counter, you say, I'm sorry, we're busy, we forgot, we'll bring it to you. Sit down, another minute goes by, someone brings you still say, thank you. You're walking out of the coffee shop, it's raining out. Somebody holds the door open for you. You say, thank you. You're walking out of the coffee shop and it's raining and somebody slams the door on you. You say, thank you. You're in traffic, you're late for an appointment, somebody cuts you off. You say, thank you. You get to the middle of the night and you stub your toe and it hurts. You say, thank you. To harmonize and network kindness. Kind is a wonderful word that stands for keep inspiring noble deeds. I can't think of anybody more inspiring of noble deeds than my dear friend, wonderful Leonard. Leonard, please say hello to 368,229 people around the world.
Hello, Barry Shore fans. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for supporting Mr. Barry Shore. What a wonderful man. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for your time, Barry.
And Leonard, back at you, kid. Okay, everybody buckle up because you're about to hear life experiences that are channeled through what we call the goodness mode. And I'm going to ask Leonard to talk about his upbringing and such like that in just a moment. But I want everybody to be aware that the reason I am so honored to have Leonard with us today is because I believe that Leonard lives for all the people who say, I can't. You know, there people actually think they can't, or they say they can't. Well, you're going to hear that you can't, because you're going to hear Leonard's story, and it's Leonard's story, but he's going to show you what happens when there are no barriers because you don't let them be. So Leonard, let's just jump right in and start at the beginning. Your upbringing. Let's talk about you, your upbringing, and where you came from, where you're going, and where you are.
Thank you, Barry. I was born in southern Philippines on the island of Mindanao during the height of martial law. And I had a very traumatic childhood. When I was 5 years old, I was tied to a telephone pole in the rain in the public. When I was 6 years old, my own godmother, and also who was also happened to be my first grade teacher, and whenever I made a mistake, tortured me in class. One time I had to stand in front of the whole class with 2 books in each hand as punishment. And when I started to drop the books, she would hit my hand and I had to bring them back up. And people, my classmates, were either laughing or afraid to have done the same thing to them. And another time she made me kneel on corn kernels in front of the whole class. And this is my godmother, who is supposed to be, somebody who would take care of me. And then I grew up in the Catholic Church, baptized in the Catholic Church. I was also an altar boy. But one Sunday when I was 8 years old, I didn't have duties that Sunday. I was sitting with where the children were supposed to sit. And there were children behind me who were talking. So I turned around and told them to be quiet because the priest didn't like that. But he immediately called me to the front of the church. It was very full. I remember both sides of the building were full. And I thought he was going to call me up there to congratulate me. Good job. You're doing God's work. And as soon as I got up there, he slapped me so hard in the face with his right hand, and it hit me right here. And immediately there was shock. And then, bright lights and darkness, and then shame. And he was screaming at me. Nothing registered. I just knew that something about me was wrong. Something about me was not right. And he pointed me back towards my seat, and I walked back to my seat in the pew. And I sat there for the whole time, not knowing what to do. I wanted to leave, but I didn't want to leave. No one helped, not the police, not the nuns, not the adults. No one confronted him and said, that's child abuse. And I was afraid to tell my parents when I got home, because I had already been tied to a telephone pole and hit multiple times. I was angry. When I became a teenager, I was very angry at the world. Even before we left the Philippines, one of my high school teachers grabbed me by the throat, was about to hit me. And a few years before that, one of my teachers would sink her long fingernails into my head as punishment. And so I thought, I grew up thinking that this is how life is supposed to be. It's supposed to be violent, and people were happy. I would see other people, families that were happy, and I thought, that was just all a facade. It was all to put up a false picture. But as soon as they got home, I knew that there was a lot of violence, a lot of diminishing the value of the human soul, a lot of fear. And I also grew up with an alcoholic uncle. He was the youngest brother of my youngest brother of my father's siblings. And every time he would get drunk, he would threaten to kill my father with either a pistol or it's emotional when I think about it, but he would threaten to hang my father, with a rope. And my father never fought back. And I initially, I accepted that. And then I started hating my father for that fighting back. I started to look down at him as, somebody who couldn't protect the family. And then, we immigrated to the United States.
Let's put you on pause here for the moment, because I think that there are people everywhere leaning in, listening, and feeling the tears as you are, as you're remembering these terrible situations, which I can feel the slap, but I'm sure you, half a century after the event, almost half a century, can still feel the sting, not just of the slap physically on you, but what it did to you as a human being. As you said, diminishing the value of the human being. And that's what you lived with, grew up with, and internalized for the first almost 2 decades of your life.
Yes. And I mastered that. I mastered that self-loathing. And one thing I forgot to add is when I was 5, I was sexually abused. And I didn't know what a person that lived in the household with us. So as I was growing up and became a teenager, I didn't know how to feel safe around women. When I started having girlfriends, and then my first wife, I'm on my second marriage now. We've been married 23 years, thankfully. But I didn't know. I felt that women were just showing their kindness temporarily, and that sooner or later, things would happen, and they would again just diminish me as a person, as a man, as a human being. And it really, when things were going smooth, I created drama because I felt that drama was needed for a good relationship. It's a horrible way to live.
And by the way, just to put this in perspective, everybody understands, Leonard now has healed himself greatly, which you'll hear about. But the point that he's bringing out here is that drama is a negative force in one's life. And it's done because, as he said, I had to write it down, but you'll read about it. He mastered self-loathing. So I want everybody to hear that. He mastered self-loathing as opposed to mastering self-growth. It took years of self-loathing to get to a point where he was able to say, that is not the way to live. That is counterproductive. It is harmful to everybody, but especially to me, to you. Again, remember, this podcast is all about you. As great as Leonard is, and he's wonderful, and Barry Shaw is a nice guy, but this is about you. And everyone to some extent practices some of what Leonard is sharing with us right now. So thank you so much for this, Leonard. So you were in drama, and you said that's the way you have to live, because otherwise things will just go smooth. Who wants that? Okay, you've come to America at the age of 13. Your parents immigrate.
we lived in public housing for a few years until my parents were able to buy a house. But I spoke English, but not the colloquial way of speaking. So I was bullied a lot as an immigrant, and also living in the projects. I remember being kicked in the throat, slammed into lockers. I remember a gentleman now, but before he was in the class, he used to take a needle and poke me in the back. He sat behind me and would poke me with a needle all day, during that period. And I got tired, and I turned around and grabbed him by the throat, just like my teacher in the Philippines grabbed me by the throat. And I noticed that there was power in fighting back. But then I continued to get bullied. When I was 16, some kids held me down. We cut class. Some kids held me down and tattooed this green dot on my forehead. I never told anyone about it. I never told my parents, and it represented many things. It represented not being able to fight back. Again, I'm away from martial law, away from the Philippines, and I come to a country, and still I'm getting beat almost every day. And so I started joining the gangs, Mexican gangs and Filipino gangs, which led to more trouble. I cut class.
Again, just a quick pause. Leonard is sharing with us reality of life. He joined gangs and he thought maybe there's a place of camaraderie and positiveness. And yet it only was a path to more trouble, because gangs were not there to say, hey, everybody, this is wonderful. Let's learn how to read more and do better in school and such. It was the exact opposite. Now, I want to just sprinkle something in here, because otherwise people could say, my gosh, this is very depressing and such. On the contrary, you're going to hear things that are going to amaze you. I'm just going to give you a little tidbit. Leonard became a Green Beret, but we'll get there in just a few moments. But right now, you're in the midst of gangs, and it led to more trouble. By the way, look at that smile on his face. If you're not watching this, you're missing out on an amazing grin and smile that comes from inside of him, not just the outside. And if you're only listening, I'm describing it. It is filling the screen with goodness. That's how beneficent and wonderful and bountiful Leonard is. So you're in gangs, and it leads to more trouble.
Leads to more trouble. Did some drugs. I went to jail. Thankfully, the city dropped the charges. I was able to join the army a few years later, but I ended up dropping out of high school, and I didn't even want to take a GED. My father begged me to get a GED, and I said, I didn't know how to articulate it back then, but I felt like I had no hope. I had no one. My father loved me. I knew that. My mother loved me in the way that she could best show, but I felt like I was never part of society. By that time, I was 18 years old. 18 years of just getting thrown around, and I was always in the honor roll. And it must have been heartbreaking for my parents to see me as an honor roll student and to go into all the trouble that I had been into. And then, at the age of 17, my mother kicked me out of the house. I lived on the streets of LA for a few weeks, no money, nothing. Luckily that nothing happened to me, but I then finally begged her if I could come back, because I was too young to know what to do in the streets. And a few years later, I was able to join the army. By that time, I had been married with my first wife, but I was very, very angry. And I didn't know how to handle. She was very kind and loving. I didn't know how to handle that type of kindness. I thought everything was fake. I thought, nothing, she was going to leave me or shame me again. And one thing that I also realized was that I didn't know how to handle conflict, verbal conflict. I would call home. I was already a soldier, a few years in the Army, I would call home every time we had a fight. I felt so unempowered, not ready for the world, and 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 it hurt me. But I didn't know how to get out of that cycle because no one has ever taught me kindness
Wait a
the
minute.
right way.
This is so, for me, this is truly amazing and liberating. I want everybody to hear these words again around the world, because everybody faces this to some extent. I didn't know how to deal with kindness. Those are the words Leonard just used. I didn't know how to deal with kindness. We just talked about kindness. Today, Leonard is the embodiment of kindness. But that took years of work and struggle. And one of the reasons we have this podcast, and again, it's all about you, is that Leonard is here to share with you the story, to urge you to understand that you don't have to go through these years of struggle and anger and no hope, and let it go. Letting it go to live in kindness. Is that fair to say, Leonard?
Absolutely. And that kindness took many, many years. I initially thought that, first of all, I failed Special Forces selection 2 times.
Okay, well, I want to say it like this. He tried to go into Special Forces in the Army. He failed the first time. He failed the second time. So one might think, well, I'm a failure. I failed it twice already. What do you want from me? I can't do this. That's how people would have thought. I can't. Remember, everything about Leonard is, I can't. He picked himself up. Don't tell me you tried a third time.
Yes. People, to this day, people say I wasn't right in the head for trying the third time. I know many people who went and never went back. And some never go back because they did something wrong and they get a never to return. There's a category where they're told to never ever come back to try out. But fortunately, on the third try, I made it.
Now, what do you mean made it? Made it as what?
I made it through the selection course, and then I was picked to become a Special Forces engineer and demolition sergeant. That was my specialty. And I went to my first unit. I felt so empowered. I had never been on a team. I had never been on a close team of just guys.
And again, doing positive things. Remember, this is positive, purposeful, powerful, because he's demolition. Hello. Talk about power, and pleasantness in the sense that, well, gee, this is real camaraderie and it's not fake. Because any member of a team that doesn't pull his or her weight ruins a team. So you now feel that empowerment of goodness, of kindness, that you want to be a contributor. And you know that the other people are looking out for your best interest. Is that fair to say, Leonard?
I was so ecstatic when I got there, because when I was in the regular Army units, I had some leaders who were, I would say that they weren't, the slang word is chintzy. They weren't gracious with their comments, either verbally or in writing in the formal reviews. But when I got to Special Forces, my first year, my reviews are like, he did this, wonderful things. And I finally realized that the reason that they're elite is that they praise people. They sustain people with goodness, and then they provide a vision of how much greater I could be next year and later on in my career. They weren't, okay, I'll give you this much praise. It was all giving and challenging me and giving me responsibilities that I never thought I was able to do. But deep inside, I was still that scared child.
Okay, so this is wonderful. The praise is breaking through the outer layer of your being, But now we need to go deep inside of you to be able to release that atomic energy of goodness. Now, on that high note, with that big smile on his face, radiant, amazing smile, we're going to do a quick break because we have people, sponsors that love the show. We urge you to use these sponsors because they're great. They love the show. So we'll be right back after these brief messages. Don't go away. There's more Leonard on the other side. He's going to release his atomic energy for all of us that comes through and pervades and gives benefit right today. Be right back to these brief messages. Don't go away.
Imagine the kind of place you would want to shop for your favorite fur baby pet. HonestPets.co. Well, you found it. HonestPets.co. Not .com, .co. This is your go-to spot for the best, the cleanest pet treats that exist anywhere on the planet. All of the brands go through a rigorous review to make sure they meet the high standards of cleanliness, health benefits, and naturalness. This site was started by a husband and wife team, and it's veteran-owned, and that care about pets, especially dogs and cats, and coming soon, bird treats. These are very nice young people who really care about making a difference because a portion of proceeds go to support veteran organizations with a focus on service dogs. This is the place where you want to go. You want to tell your friends this has the finest, yummiest, freshest, all-natural treats and stuff for your fur baby. So go there, honestpets.co. honestpets.co. Do it now. Opportunity. What an opportunity. I'm going to use 2 4-letter words right now. Free gift. Free gift. Yes, you can have a copy of my best-selling book, The Joy of Living, How to Slay Stress and Be Happy, the ebook version for absolutely free. All you have to do is send an email to me, Barry, Barry, at barryshore.com, and in the heading, the subject line, just write free gift. It's as easy as that. This is a life-changing, life-enhancing opportunity. Barry at barryshore.com. You'll be glad you did. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Free gift. Do it now. Take the action. Make it happen right now. Best wishes. Bye.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking. You're always looking for and finding the good. Have we found good? An amazing being, wonderful Leonard, is sharing with us the ability to get through anything and everything. If you think you can't, or you say to yourself you can't, then all of that's going to go away. Because Leonard is the embodiment of, yes, I can. He is now selected to be in special forces in the United States Army, Green Beret, which is a very remarkable designation. And he's given to us one of the secrets of life. Actually, 2 secrets of life. One is to be part of a team. And team, by the way, Leonard stands for together, everyone achieves miracles. Together, everyone achieves miracles. And not only be part of a team, but to have people understand that he is an elite member. And in the elite world of life, praise is the greatest of all currencies. Effusive praise. Look that up if you want to. EFFUSIVE. Effusive praise. Purposeful, by the way, not false. It has to be done for something that was warranted, but he warranted it. And the more praise he got, guess what happens? He became more praiseworthy, right? So how old are you now? We're talking about what, 25?
I'm 55 now. So
No, now you're 55, but in special forces and elite. Where are we in your technology?
29 when I finally made special forces. It took me almost 4 years.
By the way, failing twice to even get in. The third time he made it, got in, he's 29. Is your first marriage, is your marriage still intact or not?
I was no longer intact. She left me, and rightfully so. I was very, very angry. And for many years, I felt drawn to go back to my mom and asked her for an apology of what happened in the past. I wrote letters. I would, where my friends would go to different places for holiday, I would go back home and argue with my family and ask for forgiveness, ask for an apology, which I never got. And that was a horrible way to live because I didn't know how to put that down. Not until I was 50 years old.
So until you were 50?
When I went to Save a Warrior at 50 years old, where I cried for 5 days about my trauma at Camp Hiss Kramer in Malibu. That's when I cried, not just from a head cry, a chest cry, but I cried and where my belly reverberated. And I cried all the trauma out for 5 days straight. That's what helped me.
This is because this is remarkable. That's why I'm going to remark on it. At 29, you're a master sergeant with a specialty in Special Forces, Green Beret, but your marriage has disintegrated because you weren't capable of reciprocating kindness, correct? Your wife leaves you, and you're distraught because the outer shell of anger is going away, but the inner core is molten lava. It's bubbling up and it won't let go. And it envelops you and it says, ha, 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 Leonard, you're a phony. It's all not real. Is that correct?
Yes. I was only a staff sergeant at that time. I didn't make master sergeant until a few years later, but it was very, and it was a self-fulfilling prophecy because I had been bullied and I had isolated myself. I felt like the isolation was fit for me. Living away from my wife then and my son was the best thing for me and best thing for them. It was a horrible way to look at life.
And by the way, many, if not most human beings look at life that way unless and until they find, first of all, a mentor.
Yes.
Number two, willing to let go. And number three, recognize that the way that you live now is not the way you have to live. It's called, we said before, shift perspective. And again, 97.2% of everybody I've worked with over the years, Leonard, still has the F. They drop that F in shift, and the other stuff happens. That's what happened to you. I want to go a little bit deep now, right? Because I just want people to understand. Tell us a little about your education background because it's so remarkable. It's so extensive. It's so interesting. And yet now you've already told us that you still weren't able to let go with all the achievements that you have. I mean, dozens and dozens of things that are positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant. With all of that, you weren't able to let go until age 50. But let's not go there. Just give us some of the educational processes you've gone through, because I think they're instructive, excuse the pun, but very, very helpful to people.
Thank you. That's a very great question. I joined the Army as a medical equipment repairman, so I learned how to fix X-rays and hospital beds, but didn't like it for some reason. I wanted a human connection. I didn't want to work with machines. I don't know if that stemmed from me trying to heal myself, but I needed a human interaction. And then because I failed in Special Forces twice while I was in that field, I said, well, I could get closer to the special operations community by going to the psychological operations way, where I learned how to talk to people and speak in a foreign language. And then I finally made it to Special Forces. But then I still had a GED. I had a GED until my 20th year in the Army.
By the way, everybody should know, because not everybody's in United States of America. So worldwide, just so you should understand, I forget exactly what GED stands for, but basically it's graduating educational diploma, something like that. And it means that in essence, Leonard never completed his high school curriculum. I want everybody to understand, he was a high school dropout. He didn't complete high school the way most people do. Even though the way most people do doesn't mean they're educated at all, but they complete the assignments. He never did that until his 20th year in the Army, right? He gets now his GED. He's a high school graduate. I want everybody to understand, those people around the world say, well, gee, I don't have education. He wasn't even a high school graduate. And now what do you do after this, Leonard? Do you have any other educational background?
On my 15th year in the Army, that my unit decided to send me to Arabic language school. And because I had a GED, the guys in Washington, D.C. said, why are you going? And I said, I didn't apply. They volunteered me. And he goes, you're not going to make it. And I said, okay, I'll prove you wrong.
And you hear those words? Other people said you're not going to make it. Did Leonard let those words enter him? Did you let them enter into you?
It fueled my study. I remember at the end, every Thursday or Friday, I would have stacks of paper because I would write every hard word until I could think about it in English and in Arabic at the same moment. And I became the only Green Beret with a superior rating in Tagalog and Arabic for multiple years, the only one in the entire regiment, near native capabilities in Arabic. And then on my 20th year, I got my high school, my 4-year degree. And then a few years later, after I got medically retired, I was medically retired, and the psychiatrist said, if I give you a PTSD rating, you'll never get a federal job. I was very, very afraid. So I said, well, I guess I don't have PTSD. But because I declined, it set me back a few years. It really hurt my healing. But a few years after I got medically retired, I earned an MBA in global management. And at the same time, I earned a scholarship at the Academy of Competitive Intelligence by Ben Gilad, where I won 2 analytical awards in business intelligence, an individual and a group analytical award.
I want to just hold for a moment. Again, hundreds of thousands of people listening all over the world, and God willing, you'll share this with at least 5 people. So I want at least 1.5 million people to hear Leonard's story. I failed. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. And now he's winning award after award after award in the educational realm. Everybody needs to understand that. Remember, he is the embodiment of I can't becoming I can. I can. I can. You can do this, because this show is about you becoming the best you possibly. Everything you want to know about Leonard and what he does and his remarkable background and what he's working on right now, because it's really important for the world, go to my website, www.whatawonderfulworld.barryshore.com, BARRYSHORE, because Leonard's story is your story. And every degree. Not everybody has the same amount. Not everybody has to be paralyzed, but everybody goes through stuff. And the ability to a shift in perspective and keep that F in shift will allow you to recognize that you can have multiple degrees, first rankings from a guy who just got his GED after 20 years. There's nothing stopping you except you. Okay, let's continue. So you've got an MBA, you got this, what do you call it, written up and for several awards and such like that. Anything else that you've done that we should know about?
One of the saddest moment of our lives is that we bought our first house in North Carolina in a Gulf Coast community. Oh, education wise?
No, you said we bought a house. So did you get remarried?
I got remarried in 1999 to Cecile, who is from the same island where I was born. And we've been married 23 years. We have 2 sons, and plus my son from my first marriage, who she thinks of it, treats them as her own. And we bought a house, our first ever house, before I got medically retired, and it happened to be right in front of a drug dealing house. I started to turn them in. They found out that it was me, and they started threatening us. After a few years, we had to leave. We were going bankrupt. Nobody would buy the house. We moved to California. We all four of us lived in a one-bedroom apartment, going bankrupt because nobody would buy the house. It was, and at the same time, I was not able to work because I needed a whole bunch of surgeries. At this point, I've had two hip replacements, a total knee replacement. I have metal in my neck as well. For almost 3 years, I could not walk after we moved from North Carolina to here. So it was, I promised them, my family, that once we moved away from that place, I could heal from my PTSD. And again, there was some self-loathing because I failed to do that. I couldn't work. And because I had been angry my whole life. As a soldier, I had an outlet with the enemy. And then in North Carolina, I had an enemy across the street. But when we moved to California, I had no longer had an enemy. The enemy became myself and then my family. And they've had to leave the house. They had left the house when I was really struggling right before I went to inpatient psych for pain. I was going to kill myself because I was in so much pain. I was in crutches for almost 3 years.
I need to put you on pause because I'm crying and you're crying, and I'm sure that there are many people around the world crying right now, because what you're articulating is the human condition unless and until you recognize it, face it, and overcome it. The genius of this enemy is that it will stay with you and hurt you and try to devalue you until you face it and overcome it. And literally just by facing it and saying, you're nothing, I can blow you away literally with a breath.
Yes.
And the enemy is not strong. It is weak. When you face that enemy, it will dissolve and you will be freed. But that means crying, recognizing, becoming aware, and accepting full responsibility. Is that fair to say, Leonard?
That is so perfect. I blamed the world so that I didn't have to change, because it was so hard to change. And also, I had gotten used to 4 decades, almost 5 decades of blaming the world.
Why not? I mean, by the way, Leonard is articulating, he's a big fan of my book, The Joy of Living. And one of the 11 strategies is specifically don't complain, don't blame. Easy to write about, but we've all lived through it. It's so comforting to do, isn't it? Because that is the easy. I can show you exactly that person who is to blame. You know what that person did to me? Don't you understand? Well, yes, but that only supports your enemy within. Your enemy grows bigger and stronger by complaining and blaming. And now Leonard is recognizing, I don't have anybody to blame. Uh-oh, what am I going to do? So what did you do, Leonard?
I turned to more self-loathing, and especially when I couldn't walk, I neglected myself. I no longer brushed my teeth. I sat around because I couldn't even stand to brush my teeth because of all the pain. I perfected that art of blaming my wife, blaming my kids, blaming the neighbors, creating drama that I had been inculcated into since childhood. It was a horrible way to live, but I didn't know how to articulate any other way until December 17th, 2017.
Wait a minute, I want to listen to what he just said. The exact date, 12/17/17. What happened on that day?
By that time, both of my parents had died. My mom died in 2016, and I no longer had anyone to blame. So a little bit over a year later, I just fell apart in the living room crying in front of my wife. And she asked me what was wrong. I said, I don't know. I couldn't stop crying. So I finally reached out to an organization called Mission 22. I said, I'm suicidal. I've been struggling for years. Then they got me to Save a Warrior. Save a Warrior was founded by Jake Clark. It's in camp. It was in Camp Heskramer in Malibu, California, where I spent 5 days crying about my trauma, and that was what was I needed. When I came back home, by that time I had been in counseling for 6 years, struggling to stay alive between appointments, weekly appointments, struggling, just making it enough, always strategizing how I was going to kill myself. But 3 weeks after I graduated from Save a Warrior, my kids called Jake, and this at 10:30 at night, they said, "Thank you for fixing my dad." Thank you. And I still remember it to this day. It was 10:30, and Jake was, I believe, in the East Coast at the time. He took the phone call, and he taught me 3-minute hugs. One of the things I learned, I wanted to quit before the day started. The week started. I wanted to quit because I didn't know how to live happily. I was so used to hating myself on others. And on the third day, I wanted to quit. If I had a car there, I would have driven away because I no longer knew what happiness was. But on the third day, also, there was the equine day. And before I went into the horse stable, the counselor said, think back to when you were safe. You felt safe the most. And that was when I was 3. So instead of approaching the horse, I went and played. I played with the sand on the ground, sat down, and got myself to that energy of innocence, the innocent child. And so where other people before me were trying to approach the horse, and the horse just kept walking away from them, the horse was so happy to see me happy. The horse came to me. And then I realized, and I share this with everyone, that for me to attract goodness, I had to be that inner child, that innocent child, before I was beat, before I put on a layer of armor of ego and strength. And a green beret was also my layer of armor, which any kind of armor also, it deflects hurt, but it also keeps the goodness from coming in and the goodness from me coming out.
Everybody around the world right now is leaning in, smiling, crying at the same time, and doing exactly what you did, Leonard. We're all putting sand on us, and we're in it. We're getting to our innocence. The essence, the energy of innocence is such a wonderful image. It's because it's true. See, that's the genius of what he's saying. He's talking truth. And truth is the element that the enemy can't abide. As long as you live in truth, the enemy begins to dissolve. Much like that great scene in The Wizard of Oz where water is thrown over the Wicked Witch and she starts dissolving. I'm dissolving! Well, that's the Wicked Witch. Everybody has it. The key is how you rid yourself of it. Do you try and suppress it? You want to dissolve it? The best way is with tears. That's the water that dissolves the wicked witch who lives. And if you don't know what I'm talking, by the way, because most of the people listening are under the age of 35. If you ever heard of The Wizard of Oz, the movie, just Google the scene where the Wicked Witch of the West is dissolving because of water thrown. You'll see what Leonard is talking about. You'll see it. This is what he has. His tears dissolved the enemy. I'm sorry to say that we're coming close to our time limitation here. Not that we are limited in any way, but the limitation. And I'm going to just sprinkle a little pixie dust because one of the secrets of Leonard, in addition to everything else, is that he is on a path now in another religious tradition. Is that correct, Leonard?
Yes. when I was struggling in 2014, I ran across a Chabad article about how to return a lost glove.
Wait
I
a minute.
read
I
this.
want to tell everybody, Chabad is Chabad. Chabad. Again, you'll see it in Leonard, but just you can go Google Chabad, and it's a Jewish. It is Judaism, and the article was about how to return a lost glove. Well, who cares about that?
But it was so interesting to me because it codified how much money to spend, how long to look for, how to qualify it, whether it's it should be returned or not, and responsibilities of the person who found it. And I thought to myself, wow, if a group of people could codify the value of something not even alive, how much could they teach me about love for me, love for animals, and love for others? So I started studying almost every day because I was struggling. I couldn't work. I couldn't leave the house. And then in 2017, I mustered up the courage to approach a conservative rabbi. And before that, I changed my mind so many times because by going, I would have left everything that at that time I thought I would be leaving the culture that I knew. And part of that culture was self-loathing. I didn't know how to leave that. But it was very interesting to me that in Chabad, failure is talked about and then success. It's not a shame. In my culture, failure is not talked about. A ding in the armor is not talked about because one is supposed to be perfect. But in Chabad, perfection is being imperfect.
Isn't this wonderful what he's sharing with us now? This is the essence. You just heard the essence of Judaism. The essence of Judaism is perfection is being imperfect. That's the nature of the human being. And now you can live with that, revel in it, and now you have what you call the beauty, the energy of innocence is being returned to you. And now you're on a pathway of opening up and living with and touched by the light and the glory of God. Is that correct?
Yes, and I've been studying with Chabad Rabbi Mendy Begun in Chula Vista, California. What a wonderful man, wonderful family. They accept me. I study weekly. They're teaching me the basics of the prayers, the Siddur. And one thing that I'm always, and I've said this to Rabbi Mendy, that I appreciate how they treat and they talk to the kids, the kids that come, and I see that it makes me so happy. And I told them that I never understood why my Jewish colleagues in the army were more confident than me. And I said, Rabbi, I finally realized that they're confident because they know they're loved from the very beginning. They know that they can make their own choices. They can speak up at the age of 13 and their opinions are valid. Where I grew up in a culture where, people told you when you were supposed to have value.
We love you, Leonard. I have 3 quick questions for you, Leonard. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Number 1, will you come back again?
Oh, yes. Oh, I would love that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Number 2, you have 80 seconds only to answer this question. Ready?
Yes.
What is your most fervent desire?
I'm going to build a global company. It's called Public Value LLC. The logo is this PV. It looks like a person about to take a run because I couldn't walk for 3 years. And I sat in my living room for many years thinking I had zero public value. But I do have value. That's the meaning of my company. That's the meaning of my logo. And right now, I just finished last year a master in public policy and administration. And I'm in a doctorate program right now for law and policy. My focus is global water. is very biblical, digging for wells. But I'm going to be a global expert in drinking water. And with this company, I'll be able to take it and help communities and help people, not just monetarily, but the space between the brain and the heart.
Thank you, wonderful Leonard. Now, the third one. May I give you a hug in front of 368,918 people around the world?
Please.
Here we go. Now, just beware. HUG stands for Heartfelt Unlimited Giving. Heartfelt Unlimited Giving. I'll count to three. 1, 2, 3.
Yes, thank you.
Remember, listening to The Joy of Living with your humble host, Barry Shore, and our amazing guest, wonderful Leonard. And this show is all about one person only. You. Y-O-U. You becoming the best you possible. Leonard, amazing stories and such. It's all about breaking through. You can. As nice as Barry Shore is, it's all about you. You can. And you use the 3 fundamentals of life we discussed in the show, that what life has purpose. Your life has purpose. When you lead a purpose-driven life, you go mad, make a difference in the world. You unlock the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms like WWW, what a wonderful world. And you will be happier, healthier, and wealthier. We guarantee it. Learn to use, smile, internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life, seeing miracles in life every day. Or as my 8-year-old niece says, seeing miracles in everyday life. Create the kind of world you want to live in, causing rethinking, enabling all to excel, like Leonard did. Rethinking. Remember, the 6 most important words you can ever internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Choose, like Leonard did. He chose to be free of the enemy. Use 4-letter words. Remember, the positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant 4-letter words. Love, life, hope, free, grow, give, play, pray, swim, and tell the world to F you. Capital N, capital N. You got to add those 2 letters right after that. Teach people. Tell everybody, F you. Everybody say, where'd you get that? We listen to Barry Shore, the Joy of Living podcast. And use the 2 most powerful words in the English language 3 times a day from now and the rest of your life, because it'll make benefit for you, family, friends, and all living beings. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks stands for to harmonize and network kindness. Kind. Keep inspiring noble deeds. That's what Leonard did for us. Leonard, you're going to give a blessing from you and from me. So everybody watching and listening, remember, share this with at least 5 people. Go forth. Live exuberantly. Spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad. Go make a difference. Leonard, don't go away, okay?
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joy of Living podcast. Now that's another step towards your healthier, happier, and wealthier life. Never hesitate to do good in the world, no matter what the situation. Join us for another upbeat discussion next time at barryshore.com. And be sure to leave a rating and subscribe to the show to get more conversations like this. And remember to share it with your family and friends too. See you on the next episode.